Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Could you, if you haven't already, could you take a seat, please? One or two more just joining us. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 Lifetime CDT Stakeholder Day, the annual event to be at, very much so. So, good morning again, and welcome to Glasgow, those who are not local. If you've made the journey to be here today, thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate the fact that you come to be here with everybody else and meet your fellow travellers on this journey of this particular CDT. So this is your day, very much so. It will be mainly a conversation. It might seem to be starting fairly formally, but in actual fact, it's quite an informal day, really. And this afternoon, we will get you all talking with each other about issues of concern and importance and interest to all of you, which you will, in fact, generate with us later on this morning. Okay, so it's very much your day, it's your conversation, so please be a skillful participant. What does that mean? Well, nice way of putting it is to listen with attention and speak with intention. Meaning, say things that will have the kind of effect that you would like ultimately to have, okay? So, for those of you that are students in this, this is an experience for you as well, so to practice participating in big group events, which is part of professional life, so I at least see that as one of the kind of outcomes for the day as well. Just a few housekeeping kind of things. The toilets, you probably know already, but are out here, turn right and right along the corridor slightly and just sort of through there, as it were. There are no fire alarm tests planned, so any fire alarm we need to treat as if it's for real. It may be for real. So there are various exits back out the way you come in and also at the back here. And the assembly point is actually out the front door, turn right, and in the grassy bit between this building and the next building, the Rankin building, is the assembly point for us here, okay? So I just wanted to introduce Michelle, who's the boss. Michelle is ultimately in charge. Kindly asked me to come along and help you have a good day. So if you don't know Michelle, Michelle is the person to know. And if you haven't actually met her so far, then do please introduce yourself at some point. I'm sure Michelle would welcome that. She's nodding, so that must be true. So my job really is to just keep the day in shape and organize what we call open space part that we'll come to a bit later on. Those of you that have played the game before will recognize that. There's the usual sheet of paper here where we will gather topics that all come from you. I'll explain a bit more about that later on. In the meantime, we've got various short kind of talks to get us going with various things that are important. Just before we get to that, just to kind of say, as I stress the word conversation, this is about having a conversation about your work together. That's really the whole point of the day. Here's short talks, and we also have a guest speaker later on for a somewhat more in-depth coverage of a topic. So I think that's all I need to cover at this point, in which case, next up is Matt, who is going to come up and welcome everybody, I'm sure, and give us his thoughts for the year. Would that be right? Something like that.
I shall try, David.
Okay.
I don't know if this microphone's working.
It could be.
It sounds like... We've bussed all the students here. We now have rather a lot of students, it has to be said, which is somewhat terrifying when you feel somewhat in charge of you all, but nice to see everybody. And yes, and welcome to this Stakeholder Day. So Michelle has asked me to talk a little bit about stakeholder engagement. If I can get this to go forwards. Now, I think this is the second time we've had the day in this building, and this is the debating chamber of the old Men's Student Union. And I think that's kind of interesting, considering the emphasis on EDI we put into the CDT nowadays, that a few years ago that kind of thing was allowed, or existed. But so, back onto the topic, onto who our stakeholders are. So who are our stakeholders? I mean, our main stakeholder are our students. Our students who are going to be the next generation of leaders in this field, whether they know it or not. That's for sure, that in this room there are people who are going to be professors, who are going to be CEOs, etc., as they go through their career. And hopefully the CDT will help shape them on that path. Our partners, industry, NHS and charity, Our partners are critical to us helping shape projects. They're critical to us helping us achieve the CDT in the first place by helping fund projects and getting involved in co-creation of projects. Our supervisors, of course, who, we often don't talk so much about the science in the CDT. We talk about the training and developing individuals. But, of course, the science that our PhD students do is critical, and that's directed by our supervisor pool, who are all directing the world-leading science that our students are doing. Our funders, of course, they enable the CDT to happen, and the public, who ultimately pay their taxes or charitable donations or buy things from industry that then help fund the CDT. So these are our stakeholders. So I'm going to quickly whip through a few bits and pieces about the various stakeholders. So I'm going to start talking about the students. So we had our first retreat, of course, for the CDT. I was just talking about this in the coffee room. The CDT started, we had all sorts of plans, then lockdown happened. 2 years or so later, we're emerging from that and starting to do things again, which is wonderful. We had our first retreat up to the Burn in Edsall, which is a real treat. It was a shame the Irish students couldn't come over because of travel restrictions at the time. Really great to see them all here today. Thank you so much for coming over from Ireland. We had training in networking negotiation provided by the Entrepreneurial Business School, Martin Peacock from Zimmer Peacock and Annette Bramley from NH Research Partnership came and joined us. We also held our 2019 cohort Impact in 60 Seconds competition, which was really good fun. And then after this, we had our rotations between Glasgow, Birmingham, Aston and Ireland, where the new students and the 2020 intake of students who hadn't been able to rotate went on rotation. It was a bit of a masterpiece of Michelle's and Amy's organisation to be able to achieve that, and Mihai as well, I should say as well, to move two groups of students through these various locations, avoiding school holidays, which are different in England, Scotland and Ireland, of course. And I think these are important and a first step in well-being and recovery. It's something I think about a lot, the effects of lockdown on 20 to 30-year-olds, as looking after a big group of 20 to 30-year-olds in the CDT, and some of the negative effects it's had on young people, early career researchers' motivation and ambition. And so these kind of events, I think, are important for bringing us out of this. And I'll talk about that again in a second. But our students have been very busy over the last year. They've attended 42 different meetings, presented 14 posters, won 6 conference awards, have performed outreach, written blogs, impact videos, going on to helping with various schemes like I'm a Scientist, Stay at Home, etc., etc. Published papers, 10 original and review articles, contributed to entrepreneurial summer schools, mentored master's level students and undergraduate students, helped organise chair meetings, organise semi-series, journal clubs, etc., etc. They've even managed to make company visits in this time. We've had 7 company visits. And the 2019 cohort, the first cohort, have started to undertake their placements. And 2 have been complete so far, and I think another 2 are underway. And others are being organised. So we're starting to get into putting people into placements, which is really great that this is now possible. Now, I want to give a bit of a case study of one of our students, Aveen, who, here's a student who's showing really amazing leadership skills. I should say independently of the CDT, but I'm happy for the CDT to try and claim a bit of Aveen's hard work and glory here. She's really been pushing it over in Galway. So just a few highlights of what she's been doing. Excuse me. She founded and then has been chairperson of Women's Science, Technology, Engineering and Maths at Society. Since starting a PhD with Lifetime over in Curran. So aims to support, encourage and engage and guide women in STEM over in Galway, no matter of their career standing, so from undergraduates through to professors. Well, in the first 2 years, the Society's been very busy. Mentorship programs, coaching, speaker series, engaging with outreach, fireside chats with very senior people within NUIG, raising thousands of euros for charity and winning prizes along the way as well. And it should say that Aveen is also leading an internship program which she won a grant for, and that is piloting now. And we've, as I said at the bottom, watch this space for updates regarding this soon. I'm not allowed to say anything, but bigger and better things could be on the way. So well done, Aveen. I think we should give a quick round of applause for that. I really think Aveen is a great example of someone who, through lockdown, has found the energy and shown leadership skills and done a really great job. So well done. And I want to talk to the students, as we've got the students here today. And it's the first time we've had a chance to talk to all the students together, or at least most of the students. There's a couple of visa problems coming over from Ireland. But this year is a time for recovery of ambition. And I think about this a lot. I talk to young people who have had labs shut, who have been locked in accommodation they wouldn't choose to be locked in, sometimes with people they wouldn't be choose to locked in with, whilst us older people are locked in with people we hopefully get on with. I'm trying to look for Kathy, there's my wife. We've come through it. In a comfortable environment with our careers sorted out and all these things that ECRs worry about a lot. And it's definitely had an impact on mental health and well-being of PhD students across the board, not just the Lifetime students, but other students. I think Lifetime's done really well. We lost 2 students because of COVID. A lot of CDTs have lost a lot of students because of COVID. So I think we've looked after each other pretty well. So I thank all the students and supervisors for looking after each other. Now, I want to give the students a bit of a message here. And that is, we've got to remember that we're privileged to do what we do. In my life, I apologise to some students who heard me say this the other week. In all of our lives, I'm sure we've done jobs that we've not enjoyed. So for me, I was a trolley porter in Asda. As a vegetarian, I worked on the meat production line at Pike Biggs Pies. And a few other, I was for Leicester District Council. I was a road sweep and a bin man for a summer holiday. And all these jobs had something in common, and that was clock watching. And also tended to be being treated badly by the management whilst you're doing it. And the day I started my PhD was the day I stopped watching the clock and realised there wasn't enough time in the day, and I was talking to Megan about there not being enough time in a month before. And I think you're really privileged when you have a job where you're not watching the clock, or a project where you're not watching the clock, where there's not enough time in the day to do what you need to do. It's a really great position to be in. And I think we need to think about how lucky we are as we have these challenging, worthwhile jobs and projects that help us build careers rather than jobs. And there's a difference. All the people I went to university with didn't do PhDs, and they have jobs. They're bored, they watch clocks. I did a PhD, I'm in research, I think it's something worthwhile to do. I've built a career, and I feel very lucky to do that. And so I want to give 2 quotes to the PhD students, if that's okay. So this is from Steve Jobs, and that is, your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And that's true. We work a lot. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And I think this is our opportunity in science and in research to do great work. I know individual projects can seem small, but when I look at my collection of PhD students throughout the years and the work they've done, it seems like a big amount of work that I've managed to achieve with the help of all these PhD students. So this is important. And then the second quote is from Parks and Rec, which I watched with my kids over lockdown. And I rather like this quote, which is, work hard to do something good with people you like. And I think this is the opportunity we all have as part of a CDT. Lots of people we like. The opportunity to do something good, because we're doing projects that can make a career and can also contribute to the knowledge and even translation. And we can work hard to achieve this, because we are going to spend a lot of time at work. So let's work hard to do things good with people that we like. So now the labs are fully open, movement possible. It's time for you all to feel this motivation. It's my message to the student stakeholders here today. So for the partners, we have 23 paying partners. Our target is 24, I think. Look at Michelle, who's nodding at me, so I'm not too far off. So we're pretty much there, which is good. I think it's a good number of partners. At the close of the next recruitment drive, we think we'll have satisfied all partners, not satisfied, would have had co-creation of PhD projects with all but one partner. And that partner, Reneuron, we've re-engaged with, and we're formulating projects for the next cycle of next intake, which will be the final intake, so 2024 intake. Our main co-funder is Animal Free Research UK. We've managed to sign an agreement this year and have aligned studentships to their principles, you can see here. And we also have some partners with more than one project, and I know that Cell Guidance Systems are here today. I can see Michael and Jonathan back there. Thanks for coming, guys. And they, along with Manchester Biogels, have also started to have user groups which includes students out with the CDT as well. So this is the CDT bringing things together that can benefit other students. So this is something really good to think about, bringing users of these products together. We continue to work with our partners. Today, we have representatives from Zimmer Peacock, Cell Guidance Systems, and Reprocell, and also we have Stuart from BioAssent to deliver our keynote talk. Thanks for coming along today, Stuart. We've welcomed some new partners this year: Hook Instruments, Horbia, QuestMeet, Ivan's new company, and Manchester Biogels. And we have our Student Day organised in Birmingham on 27th of September. And something I really want to tease out of these stakeholder meetings is what can we do to make these events more attractive to industry, get the more engagement from industry in these events. Our main event to attract industry to is the event in Birmingham, the Student Day in September. How do we get people to want to come to it is something I regularly ask myself. I have some ideas there. So something that industry partners have asked us to look at this year, just to show that we respond to comments, and Michelle will talk a bit more about responding to comments, is our partners identified the need to provide an understanding of regulatory pathway for our students, both in terms of cell therapies and in terms of drug discovery. So we're responding to this with regulation training planning to take place in year 2, with students then having a better understanding of cell therapy regulations and GMP manufacturing. I believe Ivan's going to lead on that. Students will also have the opportunity to take part in VR training that was built for the Cell and Gene Therapy Catapult in GMP manufacture, which looks really exciting. Last year, Charles Rivers spoke to the students about the role of CROs and the ATMP process, as well as safety testing last year. I think that should be AMTP, actually, isn't it? Ivan, is it ATMP or AMTP? I'm having one of those moments. Thank you. It's right. I shouldn't have doubted you, Michelle. It's just one of those senior moments. But we also have to think about regulating models as well, which is something a bit different. And so we're going to set up a little group. We plan to invite people like LGC, Charles River, and NC3R to be a member of this group so we can advise our students on the best way to regulate and certify models that can be taken up by pharma as well as cell therapies. And I guess a lot of this will come down to reproducibility and standards, which is why we want to involve LGC. So something we want to focus on this year, we've focused a lot on industry over the last few years of the CDT. Something we want to focus on this year is public and patient involvement and engagement. So we want to hook up with the charities to do this. This is the lifeblood of charities. So to do this, we set up a working group consisting, as you can see here, with people from different universities. And they recommended some actions that we're working on. So appointing PPIE champions to each university. So we've got James in Aston, Tony in Birmingham, Mattis in Glasgow, and to be announced in Cureham. I have a name, but I don't know if they know yet, so I'm not announcing it right now. And we also have Yashna as student rep joining the group. PPIE put in the rotational training. We're just looking at providers at the moment. Local PPIE events will be arranged, and Stakeholder Day 2022, so this event next year will focus on PPIE. And we're talking to a whole range of charities. Here are the first 4 that we're engaging with. We chatted to Finding Your Feet the other day, one of Andy's ex-patients, a very inspirational story, who set up a charity for amputees, as well as other charities that we want to pull into this Stakeholder Day next year and really focus on charity and PPIE and how we can do this better. So this brings us to my final thought for the day, to get you thinking about questions we might discuss when David organises us. And that is Lifetime 2. We anticipate the call for new CDTs will be this year at some point. We're not sure when, we're not sure of the shape of the call either. It all seems a bit of a mystery at the moment, but it will be revealed to us at some point. We don't know if SFI will remain a partner of this. We hope so, because having Irish students is really great. But how do we best prepare for this, especially in terms of engagement? Industry, we've got a good number of companies, how to make them feel more they belong. We try really hard here, and there are definitely some companies who are really engaged with this. I mean, Cell Guidance Systems, Zimmer Peacock are 2 to name a couple. Charity, improving these interactions is a key goal for us in 2022. This is something Michelle and myself talk about a lot. Students, what more can we do? Supervisors, what more can we do? And as you put your questions to David, maybe think about how we can engage, we can tackle some of these problems so we can produce a white paper from today about how we start to approach the CDT2 competition, the next phase of the CDT. Okay, I think that's all I want to say, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Yes. Okay, so next we have Abhi Pandit from Cureham in Galway. I presume he's in Galway at the moment. And this is where we challenge ourselves with the tech. So Abby is going to present remotely on Zoom to us, and then you'll be able to hear him, and he will be up on screen.
Hi, Abby, can you hear me okay?
Just bear with us for a moment to. As a result of doing this event here 2 years ago, I think, was Abby here 2 years ago? I think he might have been, or I'm not sure, but anyway, he asked me to go and do something similar for Kuram back in October, so it's quite nice to do that. So look forward to hearing from Abby when we get organized. So as Matt was hinting, this afternoon will be a chance to talk about, in a sense, whatever you want to talk about. Now, I suggest you don't talk about the deep science of particularly. It's more about how you organize the work that you do together on the CDT. So be thinking already, please, about what would be good to have a chat with some of your fellow participants here this afternoon, and just begin to be thinking about that. For those that haven't played as it were, the open space game before, what we do is, using the tables in the room, and we'll probably use 8. There's actually 10 tables, but we'll just use 8. And we basically have 3 rounds of conversation where each table, you choose which table you go to depending on the topic that we're going to talk about. And we do that 3 times over, so potentially we talk about 24 different things. And you basically go to choose whichever topic you'd like to join, unless you nominate a topic, in which case you need to show up for your own conversation. Okay, that's the kind of rules. There's not many rules, but that is one of them. So around about, well, what time are we doing this? We start gathering these topics, 12:15 approximately. We will collect these topics on the sheet of paper that's actually lying on the stage there, using bits of card, and it's very involving. We want to hear from everyone. So when we get to that, think about what you would like to get a conversation going about. And now's the time, really. You don't want to be in a position where next week you're going, oh, I should have talked about whatever. Now's the time. We want to hear that today. And every year, and this is something I greatly respect about this CDT and the way it's run, that every year, Michelle and Matt and Manuel and the others take very seriously what everybody says when we have these events, and do their utmost to implement the recommendations or address issues raised, and have kept that kind of cycle up for several years now, and I think that's very commendable. So thanks to Matt's leadership, I think, in particular on that. So I salute that. I think that's great and excellent. How are we getting on? Okay, right. That's fine. I've suspected we perhaps might want to take that option. Okay, so in which case, Megan, there's Megan there. Okay, Megan, so unexpectedly, as it were, slightly, would you like to come up and tell us about skills training, please? We changed our mind? Okay. Well, that's okay. We all set?
Can you hear me okay, Abby?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. You're good to go.
Fantastic. Good. So, hello everyone. I heard Matt talk, and really, our stakeholders are truly you who are in the audience, and I do apologize upfront that I couldn't come to Glasgow this year for multiple reasons, but I can assure you next year I'll definitely be there and engaged personally, although we are engaged virtually right now. So I'll give you a brief outline of what our stakeholder engagement has been. But first and foremost, let me make it very clear that, as Matt said, the students are our first and foremost stakeholders. But there are other stakeholders that we also so the stakeholder that funds you is our government. Our government is highly reliant on the medical device industry that's present in Ireland, and these numbers speak for themselves. We have about 7.5% of our GDP dependent on medical device companies. So, the famous Irish saying is that, you have an Irish contact lens, Irish hip, and an Irish stent. So it's your heart, your bones, and your eyes as well. So it's all in the implants that we in Ireland are made. We are a national center, as you all know, and our stakeholders, which means our funders, which is funders ultimately come from the taxpayers, which Matty alluded to, also demand a few things about what is our impact. Our impact is not only in terms of education, but that is human capacity. How does that education impact the economic growth? How do we impact the environment? What do we do for the society? How do we engage internationally? What policies do we develop for the future of the country? And what is ultimate health and well-being, which is what we are all about, and what kind of professions we in the center strive to answer. We as a national center have a mission of being a global leader in first and foremost the industry applicable devices or applicable research. We as a national center have, yes, can you hear me? Okay, so maybe I will. Yeah, I'll try that. Yeah, so we have three clinical areas that we work in: soft tissue, cardiovascular, renal, metabolic, and neuro. Each of these areas are underpinned by researchers, which are heavily engaged in public engagement, entrepreneurship training, and also involved in translational support itself. Our international collaborations, Lifetime is one of our key engagement, where we are training the next generation of researchers with collaboration with the three major institutes in the UK. But we also have other links in the US, mainly to National Science Foundation, with four other NSF, EPS, NSF funded projects, which I will not engage right now, but some of them are in the similar technology that we are talking about. We also are heavily engaged with the Northern Ireland Center, but this is in the context of UK, Northern Ireland, US, and Republic of Ireland collaborations. But these are the collaborations I'm talking about is at the institute level and not so much at the PI level. So we have a large amount of stake in the international collaboration itself. I'll keep this slide briefly, just in the interest of time, but we are heavily engaged with the EU. EU is also one of the biggest stakeholders for us. And the numbers speak for itself. Is we have high level of engagement. We have raised about 40 million just from the EU alone. More importantly, the number I'd really like to show is that that when we write grants, 48 million of funding has gone to the industry itself. So we engage industry partners in our EU projects, and that provides ultimately jobs to the Irish. In our case, the Irish economy, we've created 9 million euros by just writing grants and creating collaborations thereof. This is just a summary. Again, I won't belabor this. You all know this. Ultimately, we've been funded as Kuno as a center. We have raised about 68.4 million from our national government itself, and we matched that funding by EU with 45 million itself. So we are very well funded, and that credence goes to the researchers, which is you, and the PIs that we engage, and obviously the collaborators that we are involved with. The other biggest stakeholder is the industry. So we co-fund targeted industry projects. We have quite a few projects ongoing. We have an open call for applications, very, very efficient project approval process. And we have a standardized national IP protocol that we all follow, which is quite effective when you work across the country. So what is the industry project? So this is an often question that we are asked. it has to be a medical device. So medical device is, organ on chip is what we consider as the next generation of medical device that is included in it. It has to be a design or research need. We are not a contract research organization. So it has to be a very mechanistic design research need that there are research questions that need to be answered. We need to have an investigator on board. It has to be a cash contribution, which we urged. Minimum duration is 2 years, strategically aligned to what we do. And the question we often ask is, what is the value proposition of this project? And then obviously, does it impact our national economy? These are all the questions that we ask when we engage industry projects. We have a huge range of industry partners. Some of the top companies in the medical device field have invested for many years, and we continue to grow that investment in that space. We are also very keen with working with SME because that's where most of the action is in the research. I'm glad to see Manchester Biogel and is also working with us, which is also working with Lifetime as well. So it's great to see that kind of linkage across the two. So an example of an industry partner is Manus Biggs, who is also a Lifetime and Kuram FI, works with a company called Accutive. So Accutive has this very interesting material that they want to see, what is the mechanism that it works with. It really works in orthopedic settings. It create, their claim is that it really promotes osteochondral repair. But Manus really looked into the molecular mechanisms underlying this biomimicry, and all the data that he produced got an FDA clearance for Accutive technology, and also got a very significant investment from one of the large medical device companies. So it's an example of what we can offer is highly mechanistic input into the product portfolio that is existing. So if you look at our Lifetime projects, overall Lifetime projects, there are 52 all of them, and they're spread across UK and Ireland. And we are now coming out of COVID, which is fantastic. So we are now going to see much higher level of engagement between UK and Ireland, and the fact that you are physically there, most of the Irish students, speaks for that itself. If you look at the CDT cohort in Ireland, in the in vitro chronic models, there's a high range of cancer models that are being developed, and very interesting one. They're mainly in the chronic space. So we've been very good in defining where we want to be. So it's in the chronic models, mainly in the cancer space, where the action is. And also in the regular in vitro models, there's also some gaps in the in vitro models, such as in drug discovery and modeling blood-brain barrier. So there's some very nice questions that are asked by the current cohort of CDT cohorts. During COVID, we really felt the need to engage the wider stakeholders, our researchers, by providing input because travel was limited from UK to Ireland and so forth. We created a whole series of Lifetime webinars. There was a very high level of engagement present in those, and a lot of investigators and young researchers heavily participated in that. So this is one of the success stories, is that this high level of engagement that we didn't miss out on during those years. The other engagement that we've been able to do is to create sustainability, and Una Fisher, who was one of our investigators, brought this whole idea of green lab to the space, which is and we are the first lab in Europe, Kuram, to be green lab certified. So again, the training associated with green lab has been imparted to all the CDT cohorts across UK and Ireland. So that's a very high impactful story. Also in public engagement, Jasmine Fairfield will also be very instrumental in providing those kind of public engagement. She runs a Bright Clubs series, and she's back in action now. She just had a baby last year, so she'll be fully engaged with all of you, and really creating a fantastic cohort. And Matt shared this picture, but this just shows you that this was the first ever meeting in the last 2 years that we ever had a live meeting in Ireland, and we could see the high level of. You can see everybody's smiling, and the smile wasn't asked. So it was very clear that we all were happy to be there, and it's really a fantastic moment with the research present. So Lifetime is a pulse of to bringing us all together in the world today that we see is in some ways quite full of strife. But again, Lifetime brings researchers together, brings in lots of high level of diversity, and it's really a pride to be here. So with that, I'd like to end my presentation, and I'll leave it for the next stakeholder to engage. Thank you.
Okay, Megan, you're on. Thank you. Abby can't hear us in the room particularly, I don't think so. Anyway, thank you, Abby. So Megan's from Aston is going to talk about skills training when we get a slide or two organised, I think. Is that you? All good? If you want to move, just
stand up. So hi everyone, I'm Megan Bosley and I'm the 2019 cohort student rep for the Lifetime CDT Skills and Training Committee, and I'm just going to be talking to you today about the skills and training that took place last year and will be taking place this year coming. So firstly, I just wanted to introduce some of the committee members. So basically, it consists of staff and students from different cohorts and different universities, as well as people from the management team as well. And the CDT is a 4-year programme, so the training takes place over 4 years and is spread out equally. But the volume and kind of the types of training does change throughout the 4 years. So at the start, there's kind of more organised training, which is there to kind of develop everyone's business skills and multidisciplinary skills. And then by the end of the 4 years, there's more student, like self-led outreach, their own placements as well that they organise. But every year, everyone will attend the 3 retreats, and this just gives everyone a chance to kind of interact and network with each other, with the industrial partners and the various different PIs as well. So as has been said before, but like the Bern retreat was the first in-person retreat that we had, I think, since COVID. So this took place, I think it was in September. And it was the 2019 and 2020 cohort that attended this. And it was a time for us to do our entrepreneur business school and our negotiation training, as well as the 2019 cohort did their impact in 60 seconds. And we had various invited speaker talks. And there was a couple of people who couldn't attend from Ireland, so it was really nice. They attended it online and were there virtually. And then the 2020 and 2021 cohort did their techniques and facilities rotation in October. So that was a year delayed for the 2020 cohort. Yeah, it was just basically an opportunity for everyone to get to know each other if they hadn't already, and to see each other in person. But I won't go into too much detail because I think the next talk is about this. And then as part of this as well, we had the CURAM Summit, so that took place halfway through the rotations. And there was talks in various sessions on things like medical devices, tissue models, non-animal technologies, and cardiac organoids for everyone to take part in and to listen to different speakers. And then we have the upcoming 2022 events. So there's going to be 3 retreats this year, which all students will be attending. So that's the Lake District Retreat, the CURAM Summit, the Bern Retreat again, and then also there'll be CDT engagement days, such as this one that we're taking part in today. The 2019 cohort will mainly be doing their self-organised placements. So that's a 3-month-long placement. So that'll be what they'll be doing. And then the 2020 and 2021 cohort will be doing quite a lot of online training, like we did over lockdown. So some of the training has moved to online training, but there will be the in-person training at the retreats. And the 2020 cohort will also be doing their Twitter conference, which went down really well last year. So they'll be taking part in that. And yeah, if anyone wants to look into this more detail, or they want to have a look at the timeline, they can contact the CDT management team to look at this again. But I just want to finish with making a special thanks to all those who were involved in the organising and taking part in the training. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Thank you very much. So we're now going to hear from Viswanath from Kuram. Not sure what that'll become. Who's going to say a bit about the rotational training as Megan has just previewed. Oh, a hole there. You all set? Good.
Hello. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Hello, good morning to everyone. Myself, I am Vishwanath, first year PhD student from Lifetime CDT Kuram, based at NUA Galway. So today I'm going to present an overview of a rotational training program, which has been concluded during the last year in the month of October 2021. So we all started off our PhD journeys from different places across the world. So we got a chance to meet together in one place, starting our rotational training program at University of Glasgow. So we got a brief introductory session about Lifetime CDT from Professor Matt Dolby, who is the director of Lifetime CDT. And during second week, we got a chance to head towards Ireland to participate in Kuram Annual Summit, followed up by the third week, we moved to Aston, Birmingham, so which was our last part of our rotational training program. So during week one of rotational training program, we got a chance to go through and listen a series of lectures on different fields in the field of tissue engineering and drug discovery. So, and this includes some of the topics such as stem cells, biomaterials, and also we got a chance to have some live practical sessions in the afternoon. And also we got a chance to interact and network with peer researchers who are working in their respective disciplines. And so these are some of the few experiments where we have worked during our time at University of Glasgow, some of the basic experiments in cell biology and tissue engineering, covering cell culture, some image analysis work, and followed by some tissue engineering work where we did some spin coating experiment. So, and during week two of rotational training program, we have been at a beautiful Johnstown estate nearby Dublin, so where we got an overview of the annual summit, which was happened with Kuram and also with other stakeholders. So we had a brief session, and also we had a training sessions that includes communication, followed up by commercialization, and also we had a practical poster session in the night. So along with this, we had multiple sessions covering on various disciplines that include such as device and therapeutics, and non-animal technologies, tissue models, organoid systems, and cell manufacturing. So followed up by this, during week three of rotational training program, we moved to Aston and Birmingham, so where we got chance again to go through several series of lectures, followed up with some practical session in the afternoon. So we got a chance to experience practically, and also so we had a demo of how VR technology can be used in the field of science, and also in how we can adopt to healthcare. So in addition to this, we got a chance to do some experiments such as cell measurements using flow cytometry, followed up by doing some gel preparations. So, and also we got some live practical demo experiments on 3D printing and by fellow PhD researchers who are working at Aston University in Birmingham. So overall, the outcome was actually we got a good introduction to Lifetime CDT, and also we were able to interact and network with peer researchers and also fellow other members cohort who are in the cohort. So, and also we got a chance to develop some theoretical and practical skills. In addition to that, we got a very good networking with eminent researchers while we are at Kuram Summit. So we got a chance to interact with several other renowned professors from different fields. On behalf of Lifetime CDT Cohort 2021, I would like to thank especially the directors of Lifetime CDT and also the Lifetime CDT administrators. I would like to specify the names of them here. Amy and Mitchell from University of Glasgow, Emma from Birmingham, and Professor Mihai from Galway. Because considering the COVID-19 pandemic situation, it is very difficult to start the rotational training program on time. So they made it look possible and also made us feel very comfortable at all locations. I thank you and all. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Viswanath. So next we have Maria Laura, who's going to say something about sustainability. Welcome, up you come. We're slightly behind the timings on this, but it doesn't greatly matter because we've got a little bit of slack just before lunch, so I'm sure things will work out fine, as long as Stuart is not on a tight time scale. No, nobody's saying that he is, so I will trust that that is true. Right, on you go.
Don't worry. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am Maria Laura. I am from Glasgow University, and I am the 2019 representative for the sustainability team. I'm going to show you a bit what we've done and what we want to do now that we can. So all of you kind of know the problem we have about climate change, but not many people know what is the impact of research in all of this. For example, did you know that labs contribute to almost 2% of world's plastic waste? And if you think about the research you do every day, the pipettes, stripettes, the tips, the welds, the plates, everything you use, it's plastic, and it's going to be incinerated probably, or it's going to end up in a landfill. So there's nothing much we can do about that because we need sterility, we need certain conditions, but there are other things we can do. For example, there has been so many universities that have been studying this and trying to find ways to help researchers to continue their research and to find sustainable alternatives in their everyday work. So at Harvard University, they calculated that research laboratories make 20% of the total building space, but they account for nearly 44% of their consumption of energy. And what this involves, for example, the fume hoods. The fume hoods account for nearly half of the total energy consumption, and the ultra-low temperature freezers, they draw as much energy as an average domestic household. And if you think how many you have, how many you're using, that it's kind of making a huge impact. And so there has been a calculation, and depending on the research area, your impact on the environment is between 100 and 125 times more than at home. So there are many ways to kind of handle this situation, and there are so many associations and corporations that are working on this, and we wanted to do something as well, because we are in a moment of our history in which we really have to take care about our environment and try to do something. At least this is what I think. So the CDT is involved in this and cares about the environment and made up a sustainability team, which is made by Emma Lardner, which is the HDI operation manager at Birmingham, and then a representative for each cohort. And we have, for now, these main goals. So there are, as I told you, different associations that kind of work and making more labs more sustainable, which are LEAF from UCL, My Green Lab from, or Professor Pandit already mentioned, Green Impact from the United Nations. And what we would like to try to do is to have at least the minimum award from each corporation and association. It depends, of course, on the university. There are some universities which are linked to, for example, University of Glasgow is working with LEAF, but Galway and Curram are working with My Green Lab. So what we would like to do is to have at least people trying to get an award and a certification from one of these associations. What we are doing as well is organize teamed events. So now that the restrictions are lifting up, we would like to organize some social events. In this way, we can also do some networking between cohorts in the same city, and maybe between cities when we have lifetime events. And we are trying to make the ones that we organize a bit more sustainable. So the 6 hours train that Birmingham had to do, you can thank us, because we decided the train is feasible for Birmingham people, even though it's a couple, 3 hours more, but it's way less impactful on the environment, so you're welcome. And we're trying to do other things, for example, trying to cut the paper waste. As you can see, there's no paper program. We are working on T-shirts and some clothing, Lifetime CDT. We're trying to not use plastic, so make it cotton, possibly organic. And we are organizing green research webinars, so webinars of research that has green themes, sustainability themes, so green chemistry, for example. And then what we're trying to do, and we're going to do in the next years also through our social media, is to encourage staff and students to join eco groups, because there are a lot of eco groups already in universities, because universities already are working on this, and try to be as much as sustainable as we can. I know we cannot enter your home and tell you what to do, but we can try to all together make a change. So what are the benefits? Of course, reducing the carbon footprint, which we all care, I hope, and expenses, which I think a lot of people care. Actually, having sustainability awards and caring about sustainability is actually attracting funding as well, because it's one of the new criteria that funding agencies are considering when giving funds. And then, of course, if students want to get involved in this, apply for awards and making themselves active and showing leadership skills, this is also an opportunity for career development. And so what I wanted to show you a bit, so already Professor Pandit said the Curum is already heavily involved in the Migreen Lab, and they got the certification, the first in Europe from Migreen Lab for the laboratories. We're very proud of the work at the University of Birmingham by Emma and the CDT students, which were heavily involved in getting this United Nations Green Impact Award, the Gold Award for offices and laboratories, and we are very proud of this too. University of Glasgow is working with LEAF, and we're starting to have some laboratories involved and making progress. For example, we have the immunity inflammation, Sir Graham is building, and the Leukemia Research Center, which already got the Bronze Award from LEAF thanks to the CDT students very recently. And what we are hoping, we have other students working from other labs working on this. We have some labs moving, so there has been some delay, the COVID delay, but hopefully we're going to have new sustainability awards very soon from our CDT labs. And I would like to mention also our industry partners, because we think about sustainability in our research labs, but we also care that our partners show some initiative on this, where this is just a couple of examples. We have the Cell-Guided Systems that is already working a lot of this with encouraging shared public transport for its employees, introduce a research leadership team to help share resources, skills, and data. The Terumo Arctic established a committee to tackle their environmental problems and environmental impact, and we are very happy to have partners that care about this as much as we do. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Maria Laura. And just in the last bit in this section, we hear from our very own Michelle, who's going to do, I think this is a kind of you said we did kind of thing, isn't it? Is that right? Yeah, she's nodding, so that must be true. All right, over to Michelle.
Looks like I'm not allowed to present. Okay, hi everyone. I think the majority of people in this room already knows who I am and have met me before, and if you haven't, then hopefully I'll get the chance to talk with you more today as the day goes on. So I just wanted to give a kind of overview of the feedback and recommendations that you gave us last year at this event, and what we've actioned over the past 12 months to take these comments on board to try and improve the CDT as best as we can. So one of the kind of main things that came up was our KPIs and what is a successful CDT. So all measures of success that were recommended last year at the Stakeholder Day have been reviewed by the management group. We then went on to create a KPI working group which consists of a management member from each institution
and as well representation from our industry partners. So the working group have now defined their KPIs based on the suggestions last year from yourselves, and some of the suggestions didn't quite fall within the KPI remit, or we maybe were unable to measure them. So we then took these forward and created CDT aspirations. So all our aspirations are on the website, and our KPIs are on the website as well. The KPIs will be measured annually in advance of the steering board committee, which normally meets in September each year, and we will require input from our students and our supervisors to help us measure these KPIs effectively. Freedom to operate, there's a need for students to understand their market and complete a due diligence process to identify any active or pending patents that may affect their freedom to operate. So this has been made a priority for the CDT, and training will now be incorporated into the Year 2 skills training programme. So the students will complete this for the first time at the Lake District at a retreat in September, with the 2019 and 2020 students doing this together, just because the 2019 programme is a bit out of sync because of lockdown, and we brought training forward, so the two cohorts will do it together as one. So during the career series last year, a lot of our partners gave talks. Some of them are here today, but we also asked them to discuss lessons that they've learned over the course of their career, especially in regards to commercialisation, product launch and infringements. Skills development came up at various different discussion topics last year, and some of these include networking, where students identified the needs for practical networking training. So we've took that on board, and when we go to the Burn in May, there will be training delivered by a company called Fox Coaching. So they deliver practical, tailored communication skills training. Scientific writing was also something identified, and we brought in an experienced journal editor who provided the scientific writing session, again for the 19 and 20 students last year. But this is now part of the skills training programme, and all students will get that going forward. Teaching requirements, there was a request for an open discussion about the teaching or demonstrating requirements at the different institutions, because there is a difference between Galway and the UK. So this has been discussed during our coffee chats with Matt, and we've confirmed that the demonstrating teaching requirements is compulsory for SFI students, but it's not for the UK students, it's optional. And credits as well, this is recognition for CDT skills training credits at Galway, which has came up various times over the last few years. But the good news is a proposal has now been submitted, and we're just waiting on the outcome. So hopefully the Galway students will start to get recognition for all the training they do across the 4 years of this programme. Student support, last year's event took place literally just a few weeks into the second big lockdown. So the wellbeing of the students was a big discussion, and we were very quick off the mark to start organising monthly student-led events. So we had a Crystal Maze activity, quizzes, bingo, various different things that was supported by the CDT. So that's came to an end now that life's starting to return to normal, and we're all here in the same room again after 2 years. The 2 monthly meetings with Matt, the coffee chats that we have with myself, Emma, Mihai, Amy, and all the students will continue. And this is now more of a student-led agenda, so that we're discussing things that are more relevant to the students. Student placements, again, was something that just needed to be clarified a bit with the difference between the UK and the SFI process. So we've now confirmed that all students, that placements are optional for Galway students and aligned students, but all UK students who are CDT students, which are EPSRC funded, or incorporated students, which are university funded students, a placement is a requirement. That's part of the training programme. And again, we'll confirm this each year when you get to that stage and you're starting to think about placements. Future career support, so interview skills training is now going to form part of the programme at the Burn as well for the 2019 students. And we're doing a joint CDT student-led careers event at Glasgow this year.
more information will come over the following weeks about that. We're just kind of starting to organise it now. There was lots of alumni recommendations as well during the discussions last year that will be actions. We're just starting to kind of get to that stage over the next year when we start to lose some of our students. Recruitment, Brexit was discussed and what impact this will have on recruitment, and that the website should be updated to encourage EU citizens to apply to the programme. So that has happened, and the website is quite clear that if you're an EU candidate with settled or pre-settled status, that you'll qualify for a home fully funded studentship. So that's all on the website. And thanks to EPSRC, we can now actually take on international students as well. They haven't given us funding for this, but we can take on a percentage each year, provided the universities waive the international fees. So it is quite clear on the website, and we've discussed recently maybe starting a frequently asked questions section as well about recruitment, just to help answer any questions. Attract more engineering and physical science candidates. So this year we've really tried to share the recruitment information to all undergraduates across the EPS disciplines within all institutions. We've tried really hard to get the message out there, and we've really encouraged supervisors to help with recruitment as well, specifically those who have a project in the mix to be recruited to. So even just by sending a follow-on email to anything that the CDT sends out, or to target MSc programmes and discuss the CDT opportunity at the end of their lecture. Wider dissemination through external websites and different societies. That was a wee bit difficult this year, trying to get a contact to actually, for them to help us promote the CDT. But we're trying to create now a catalogue of societies and key contacts so that next year this can be a bit easier for us. And just on an EDI point as well, this catalogue is also going to include different websites where we can recruit. For example, this year we've advertised in BB STEM, and maybe any other suggestions as well. So management team and students will get the opportunity to feed into that. The need for a mentorship programme was identified last year, so we set up a working group led by myself. It also included students and quite a few industry partners as well. So the programme is now out there and provides one-to-one mentorship for our students. And the mentorship can be with academics, PDRAs, industry partners, charity partners, depending on the students' needs and what support they're looking for. And as well as this, we're running an advice network at the same time, which is more for ad hoc support for students that don't necessarily want that one-to-one mentoring support at this moment in time. So if there's any 2021 students that haven't thought about this yet, that opportunity is still there for you. If you go on the website, there's a form that you fill out, and then I can allocate you to a mentor. Okay, and that's me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, it's tea time. Hooray. So let's just talk about time a little bit. Can I ask you all to be back, please, for 10 to 12? Okay, so almost full 15 minutes, but if we could all be back, good to go for 10 to 12, please. If you've got a question in your head based on anything that you've heard this morning, bring it into the conversation part later on would probably be a good time, or else just find the person and ask them. Okay, so see you at 10 to. Tea and coffee's through in the other room. Okay, everyone. Hope you managed to grab a tea and coffee. It was a bit of a longish queue in the shortest time, I know. Anyway, here we are. If we could settle down and get ready to hear from our principal guest, who is going to be introduced by Manuel. Manuel, would you like to come up and...
Okay, so thank you, you can hear me. Welcome back. It is a pleasure to have Stuart McElroy here today. Just a few words before he starts. Stuart has a lot of experience in drug discovery, over 16 years of experience in different positions. He helped establish the Dundee Drug Discovery Unit, where he started as a project lead and then a team lead, targeting and developing different drugs. He then moved up head of biology to the European Screening Center, and this is part of the European Lead Factory project. And there, Stuart, as head of biology, led a team of scientists, and he helped screening drugs for different diseases. I believe they did over 90 high-throughput screenings in over 5 years that he was there. And currently, Stuart is Director of Biosciences in BioAscent, and he's leading a team of scientists, a multidisciplinary team of scientists working on preclinical drug screening. Drug development is a key topic in the CDT, and we hope to provide tools to develop new drugs, and it's a great pleasure to have Stuart here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for the invite. So I just wanted to talk about, in general terms, the kind of preclinical drug discovery, or drug discovery in general, and how there are fairly significant structural changes going on in the industry, and how that has basically led to the creation of BioAscent as an organisation, and continues to kind of evolve. Now, I put the slides together, because I mean, when you work at a CRO, you can't really talk specifics anyway, because everything we do is for clients, so it's kind of secret. But when I put the slides together, I read the brief after I put the slides together and asked for nice positive stories. And so I apologise in advance. I'm kind of a bit of a dour Scotsman, and yeah, I mean, there are positives, for sure. But it's interesting, and I guess it also highlights why consortia like this, and you guys in particular, are critically important to the future of drug development. Because there are significant issues. But anyway, BioAscent, ripped from the corporate slide deck, we're an integrated drug discovery services provider. So we do compound screening, hit discovery, and then we have medicinal chemists who do hit to lead and lead optimization, ideally getting compounds to preclinical candidate so that they can then be taken forward into clinical testing, clinical development. And we also have a very significant compound logistics facility. So I'll go in a wee bit about detail of our background, but we're basically, I mean, we're kind of the center of the storm of the changing landscape in drug discovery, and kind of all aspects of the story touch our development. We've got lots of very experienced people, many years in industry and across different organizations, and a lot of experience across a wide range of target classes. So we don't have any specialization, particularly no biological specialization. So we're not an immuno-oncology focused company or whatever. We're discovery specialists. So it's all about discovering new chemical tools that could hopefully be developed into drug molecules. And we do that with compound libraries and various different approaches. In terms of where we are now, we're the fastest growing CRO in the UK, and we're investing heavily in that growth. We're based in Newhouse, which is about 16 miles along the M8, the big kind of silver pointy building off the M8. I think it was voted one of the most horrible architectural structures in Scotland. It's been there for a wee while. It was formerly Organon pharmaceutical company from the kind of 1950s, possibly in the 40s, but anyway, it was there for a long time. Organon invested in the site as a research centre. Then Shearing Plough came along and they bought Organon. So this is M&A. Mergers and acquisitions is the big thing about the changing landscape in drug discovery. And then Merck, the US Merck, that's Merck Sharp and Dohme, they merged with Schering-Plough, which is basically a takeover. And then what happens there is they scoop up the pipeline, they take all the potential drugs, and then they have far too much research capability, and then they shut everything outside of the east coast of the US. So in 2010, the site shut. There's quite a lot of infrastructure on site, particularly a large compound logistics facility, which was far too big for them to up sticks and take to the US with them. And that is the kind of seed for the basis of the company. So we're based around a large automated compound handling facility. Anyway, it started in 2013 as mostly around, in fact, exclusively around compound logistics. And then 2018, there was a substantial increase in investment and brought on board my group, a biology group and a chemistry group, who were working within a kind of academic consortium drug discovery model. But anyway, there was an opportunity to bring an expanded service offering, biology, chemistry, into compound management, and that's the integrated drug discovery piece. So, anyway, so to make sure that we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, just make sure that everyone understands what preclinical drug discovery looks like, and it's traditionally presented as a pipeline. This is traditional drug discovery as it stands today, and has been done for the last 30 or so years, which is maybe part of the problem, I don't know. Basic biology, so understanding potential disease targets, identifying them, and then ideally choosing something that we can take forward for drug development. And I guess the kind of molecular revolution forms the keystone of drug discovery as it stands. So the identification of one target potentially needs to be modulated in some way, upregulated, downregulated, activated, inhibited. Then identify that, produce that, find molecules which interact with that directly to give your desired function, and then optimize those compounds, hopefully towards drugs. So once you've ID'd a target, you need the tools to address that target in assay development. Reagent production, is it technically feasible? How difficult it is to develop an assay? Again, a lot of the targets that we work on are recombinant proteins, so we're starting in as simple a model as we can possibly start with to find the starting point. But they still have to be fit for purpose, and you have to be able to develop them so that you can actually use them functionally in the discovery of new molecules, which are hopefully useful. With those assays, we take them forward into hit discovery, and there are a number of different approaches for finding new starting points for drugs. The most traditional is high-throughput screening, so you take your assays and you throw as many compounds as you possibly can against them. It was very fashionable in the early noughties. Compound libraries became a point of pride for different pharma. The bigger your library, the better you apparently were. And HTS is still a mainstay of discovery these days, and it is very successful, actually. Around about 50% of drugs are discovered through HTS. But there are a whole bunch of different strategies that people use now. And there's focused screening where you have what are called privileged scaffolds, compounds which are structurally ideally suited to particular binding pockets. So kinase, for example, is a classical one here. You've got quite a defined binding pocket for ATP, and there are a lot of structural features in there that are well defined and well known, and you can start off by screening fewer molecules which are likely to bind to those features and give you a good starting point. There's fragment screening. There's computer-based approaches where we can virtually screen very, very large compound libraries. And there are knowledge-based approaches, so you can take an existing molecule or an existing substrate or some sort of binding species and hopefully develop that into a synthetic small molecule that you can develop as a drug. And there are new approaches, modern approaches. DNA-encoded libraries are one of the new ones where you're trying to screen instead of potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of compounds, going into the tens to hundreds of millions of compounds. So a whole bunch of different ways. And actually, the industry is very, very good identifying chemical tools, chemical probes against protein targets, but other types of targets as And when you've followed that up, you've run a screen, you find some hits, you need to validate them. And there's a whole literature around people being duped by hits out of screens or different approaches. You need to take chemistry at that stage. There's a SAR, structure-activity relationships. The medicinal chemist will start to change the structure of the molecule. They'll dangle bits off it, and they'll change the feature here, there, and another way. Any change they make in the structure, you're looking for change in activity, and try and understand and rationalize, is that due to specific molecular interactions that you're picking up, or is it just phys-chem properties? And basically start to give you confidence that the theories you're working on is real. And using orthogonal approaches to understand the molecular pharmacology and the interaction, mechanism of action of that molecule. It's a whole raft of things. But there are, everyone who's worked in the industry has been burned by following up spurious, dodgy molecules, which do things that aren't productive, and a year later you burned a whole load of resource and you're back at square one. But anyway, once you do have a good molecule and you know it's working, hit to lead is about optimizing those properties, identifying one or possibly two chemical series. These are structure-related molecules that you could work on. Get a really good understanding of the SAR, and then you start working on the phys-chem properties, the physical-chemical properties, to start tuning them towards drug-likeness. Okay, so there's a whole raft of literature again around what it is that makes a good drug molecule, and then we start taking those compounds, profiling them in the cell-based models, looking for functional effects, and relating that back to your target activity. And we start to bring in at that stage DMPK, drug metabolism, pharmacokinetics, and then you start to juggle. There's a huge number of different parameters that you start having to play with to develop that molecule towards something that's going to work as a drug. So it has to get into a body, it has to get distributed to where the site of action is, it has to stay there for long enough in the high enough concentration to have its function. It takes a while, and then once you've found something that you call a lead, you think, oh, this is nice, it's working, it's got legs. Then most companies, they throw a whole raft of chemists at it. 150 chemists in China will start working on this chemical series. These compounds are very heavily profiled through all of the disease models that they have, animal models, animal PK, animal DMPK, tox. Very, very resource intensive. And then ideally, out the other end pops one or two molecules that you can label as a preclinical candidate. And those compounds will go through a fairly hefty regulatory tox package. So that a lot of CROs do this sort of thing. You're understanding, are they safe? Various animal tox models. Is it feasible to actually scale up the chemistry to a scale where you'll be able to have enough material to do the clinical studies? And then when they meet the regulatory requirements, then they'll file for a new investigation new drug. Now, so that's a kind of potted history of what the drug discovery process looks like. So here's the problem. The top left there, that's the number of drug approvals per year by the FDA. Now, you can chop that graph in different ways. It will make it look like things are going up or going down. But anyway, roughly, you've got around about 50 compounds a year are approved for the market. This isn't in clinical trials. This is approved drugs on the market. And that bottom left was a review back in 2012 about the productivity of drug development. And it's essentially the cost or the number of drugs per billions of investment. And you can see that there's a fairly unadulterated straight line heading to the ground, which basically says that productivity is not improving in any way, shape, or form. And there's nothing that's touched it in the last, 50 years, 60 years. And that's despite, if we go back to this pipeline, in every area of preclinical drug discovery, there's been significant improvements in technology, techniques, software, AI, everything. There's huge numbers of significant developments all the way through the process. Different techniques for finding molecules, for profiling them, and usually you have those improvements in technology, then you would have a substantial improvement in productivity, and it's simply not the case. And if it's coming, it's still to feed through the pipeline, because you're always behind with drug development. It takes 15 years on average to get a drug through to the market. But that top right graph is one from Deloitte, which is essentially return on investment in drug discovery. And you can see, again, it's tracking exactly the same in the last 10 years. It used to be 10% back in 2010, and it's now below 2%. Now, you might as well take your money and shove it in the bank if you're an investor at that stage. So there are some issues, shall we say. But it's also caused these changes that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But you get these kind of yearly updates on everything that's failed that year. Now, obviously, the cost, the actual kind of monetary cost of all this failure is very significant, and it is the cost of failure that's the most significant. For a drug to get through the clinical phase 1, 2, and 3, through to the market, there's a 1 in 10 chance when it enters in. Now, you've already put in all of that preclinical investment to get to that stage, and then you've got a 1 in 10 chance to get it through. I mean, it feels a lot like drug companies taking big bags of money to the casino and firing it all on red, but which actually we had better odds on. And all of these things, they cost a lot of money, and there's lots of deals going on in the background. But actually, the key to this is that the true cost is, if you look at the diseases that these drugs should or were being designed to try and treat. There was no guarantees that the COVID vaccines or small molecule treatments would be in any way effective. And there's quite a lot of failure for COVID vaccines and small molecule treatments. It was I don't know, luck, but it was really good fortune that the front runners, the ones that were far enough ahead, were the ones that actually came out and they were very, very successful. But you've got Alzheimer's, Huntington's, diseases which there are no good treatments for. And there's people enrolled in these trials with hope and all the rest of it. And that's the real cost for this thing. So there's very significant things that need to happen. And there's a lot of kind of autopsy around why is this? Why is it that we're not improving our productivity? Now, actually, a lot of it's probably the preclinical models are rubbish, because 40% of all drugs in clinical phase fail because they just don't touch the size of the disease. So either you're not stratifying your patients or identifying those that are going to be likely to respond to the treatments up front, or you've just been duped all the way along, and the things that you've been looking at in the models that you have are not the right things to be trying to study. But anyway, you get all this sort of analysis in 2010. That really, the main cost of failure is the clinical phase. As I said, 1 in 10 is your chances from the start to finish. And the cost of lead optimization is pretty expensive too. But I guess the other thing is it's fine to kind of blame pharma companies for not doing the right thing, but there is also a lot of analysis on what they're basing their decision making on. So they've got pharma companies, they do have their own hit validation in-house due diligence type work that they do before they work on a target. But a lot of it comes from the literature, and one of the issues is very likely what's been dubbed the reproducibility crisis. Back to 2011, 2012, both Bayer and Amgen published saying that basically, respectively, 75% and 90% of literature work that they tried to replicate, they could not replicate. So they found it very, very difficult to replicate these trials. And there's been various smatterings of papers over the years. There was this 2016, which was a survey in Nature, just a surveying researchers asking them if they've had difficulty reproducing results, and indeed, majority of people said they had a very, very tough time reproducing results that were in the literature. Rather worryingly, they had a lot of difficulty reproducing their own work, which again shows that there's something in that. And a lot of this kicked off and I'm not going to read all this off thing, but I would recommend everybody reads the work that's come out from the reproducibility project, the cancer project, and they've just published in the end of last year, and that was specifically set up to try and address this, because obviously there's criticism if a company says that we can't reproduce the results. It could just be that you're not very good at reproducing results. But these guys went out and tried to systematically reproduce results from 53 high-impact publications. And the most worrying thing is that none of the experiments had a complete enough protocol to actually reproduce the results. Now, they did reproduce results, but it's not that great. And it could be Nature publishing guidelines that have led to that sort of result, but it's definitely a real effect. And what I would say about that is it's kind of, that person's doing something wrong and we're doing something right, or am I doing something wrong and they're doing something right? Experiments are interesting things because we think we control them as carefully as we possibly can. And even when there are a relatively simple number of variables, it can be quite challenging to get the same result time and time again, right? So in drug discovery, there are molecules that we find in HTS, or screening of all sorts, called PAINS molecules, like pan-assay interference molecules. They basically do weird and wonderful things in assays, and they come up and they look like they're active. And an example of this are compounds which aggregate in solutions. So they reach a certain concentration, and then they'll aggregate. And the classical are these kind of micellar aggregates form when they reach that concentration. And that can inhibit enzymes, or it can activate enzymes, or it can do weird and wonderful things in assays. You stick a little bit of detergent in there, it hopefully disrupts those molecules and stops them from doing those weird and wonderful things. But they can do it in very specific mechanisms. So this paper here is interesting. It's looking for TNF-alpha inhibitors. And this molecule here was their hit of interest. They did some chemistry. They couldn't optimize the activity of this molecule in any way, shape, or form. They got some structural data on it. I think it was NMR. And it showed that it was forming this aggregate of 5 molecules, which was structurally pretty much the same as a TNF-alpha subunit, and it was swapping out one of the other TNF-alpha subunits, and that's how it was having its inhibitory activity. So they were looking for molecules that would fit a nice wee binding pocket and block the interaction with the receptor. And what this was doing, it was forming these aggregates and disrupting the overall structure of the molecule. So experimental results are very highly context or environment specific, and a few changes in your assay can make all the difference. And I'll just give you one example from my past life. And this, again, as simple a system as you could think. It's a recombinant protein. It's an enzyme in a basic biochemical assay. The readout is absorbance or something like that. So basically, we ran a screen looking for inhibitors. These are 384-well plates, color-coded to define the amount of activity that the compound's having, the inhibition against the enzyme. In blue are the controls, and red are the test wells. And these are compounds that are serially diluted from left to right. Okay, so they're all hits from a screen. They've been diluted, so they're active, and you can see a dose response. The assay's a bit messy. The hill slopes on these molecules are very high. Something dodgy is going on. There was a ridiculously high hit rate, which is always bad to see. I ran out of plates. I moved to a different set of plates, which were solid wall, clear bottom plates. They should work in an absorbance assay. All of the activity of the molecules, most of the molecules, disappeared miraculously. All that's left, a couple of molecules, and in the bottom right-hand corner are the genuine controls, which we know hit the target. So, a bit of playing around. A simple component to add to an assay, DTT in this case, and all of those molecules disappeared. They were all spurious, probably some sort of metal contaminant or redox active. So, and that's a simple system. 6 variables in the buffer, but you can shop it any way you like, and you'll have different results. The plastics can be enough. But anyway, so back to kind of main topic at point. What's happening because of these changes because of this productivity crisis going on in drug discovery? Well, actually, it's resulted in a lot of, apart from a lot of navel gazing, big pharma have become a lot more cautious, and they've actually knocked back their discovery budgets. So they're worried about what they're bringing through. What they've done then is they've cut research sites, just like they did at Organon. And then all of these people who are working in these organizations for 10, 15 years have been released into the wild with their own ideas. So they are then going out and they're coming up with new ideas that they're hopefully getting funded to try and progress further. But essentially, the pharma companies themselves, a lot of the work that they get, a lot of the success that they have are now from compounds that they're in licensing. They're buying compounds, they're buying companies to supplement their pipelines. So it's going from research development to what's now termed search and development for large pharma companies. But that obviously opens up the opportunity for the earlier stage of the process. And what's happened is you've got pharma, and you've had the rise of biotech, and these are smallish organizations, certainly relative to pharma, which are usually a lot more agile. Typically they'll be platform-based or they'll be disease-focused. Some of these folk who've been working in the industry, they've been in a particular department, they've had good ideas, but they've never been able to progress them. They've gone out, they get some investment, relatively modest portfolio, and they're looking to plug the gap and hopefully get an asset to a phase far enough along that it'll attract the interest of either further investment or indeed the farm. And a lot of virtual biotech, so that's an even smaller organization, I think 5 or 6 people, if that, who are all sat at home on Zoom calls, but have budget to try and progress these things. Now the problem with that is they don't have all of the research base and all of the tools that are required for drug discovery, and that's where the CROs come in. And CROs, the growth of CRO has been very, very substantial over the last 10, 15 years, picking up the slack from pharma. And it's kind of like the gold rush insofar as a lot of organizations, and to some extent this model is now split and decreased the risk because it's fragmented it across lots of different smaller organizations and different funding mechanisms. But they need the kind of tools and shovels and pickaxes to go mine the gold that they're hoping to find. And that's what the CROs are doing, providing all of the infrastructure. And again, as I said, because there was a kind of massive reduction in pharma R&D activity, there were a lot of people out there looking for jobs. So they've kind of fit into this sort of thing. And there's significant venture capital going into the biopharma sector, and that's growing as well. So that's where we are. And then we were, as I mentioned before, well, maybe I didn't. 2013, we started off 4 staff, specifically compound management, based on the facility at Newhouse. At that time, we were working alongside my group and the chemistry group. We were onboarded into the company with a relatively modest investment that increased the headcount to 25. And as of the start of this year, we're sitting at over 70 now. And there's no sign of that slowing down at the moment. And that's, we provide the spades and shovels for doing drug discovery. And there's a lot of investment at the moment. So yeah, there's a slide that's saying that one of the problems is finding people. So if anyone wants a job, come give me a shout. So as I said, I mean, that wasn't very positive, and I apologize in advance, right? But it is a positive story because Phil, my boss for many years at CSO at BioCent, he was working at Roche in the 80s, and it's a sin. Back then, obviously, the AIDS pandemic hit in the early 80s, and he said he went to an AIDS ward, and he said it was just filled with people dying in beds. People got behind drug discovery effort, and certainly within 10 years, certainly less than 10 years, there were drugs coming out for treating HIV, and he went back to those wards, and it was completely empty in the mid-90s. So it is very successful when it's motivated. And it's kind of, the parallel is the COVID wards from most recent history. Who could have thought we would have managed to get so many treatment options and obviously vaccines produced so quickly to head the pandemic off, hopefully. And I guess this is another one I pulled off the website, which is looking at just cancer, all cancers in Scotland. Incidents going up consistently, obviously aging population and all that, but mortality rates very consistently going down. So it works. Now, drugs will be a part of that. It won't be the only story there, but it's not something to give up hope for. And as I was saying, it's the work of consortia like this which will help improve the preclinical and diagnostic models and more companion diagnostics for stratification of patients, etc. That's the stuff that's required to help hopefully translate more of the molecules that are pushed through into clinical development. So I'll just stop there. Answer questions.
Okay, we've time for a few questions for Stuart. I think we've got a roving mic, so it'd be quite nice to use that. So as the handful of people we have that are following online can hear what you ask. So, question for Stuart. There's one over there. Just past here. So if you could say your name and where you're from, I'm sure that would help Stuart frame his answer.
Hi,
Please.
Stuart. Jonathan Cox from Aston University. Question for you is, are there specific disease areas that your company is interested in, or are you just keen to find new drugs, full stop?
I mean, in general, we're discovery specialists, so we work across the piece. We obviously integrated. We've got chemistry and biology and compound management, but if we were working on a specific disease indication, we usually engage with a specialist CRO who has specific disease domain knowledge. But yeah, we work across all drugs.
Thank you.
Okay, next one. I'll go over here first, actually. Hi, this lady here. If you could just say who you are and where from, please.
I'm Paige Walzak, PhD student. Hello.
From here.
Okay, Paige Walzak, a student from Aston University. A bit of a complicated one, but where do you think we can regain some optimization in the drug discovery pipeline?
So, I think the one thing that's riding the wave of the hype cycle at the moment is probably AI-enabled chemistry. So there's a company, Exscientia, who are making significant waves at the moment. I think, and the idea there is that, it might take 2 years in lead optimization, quite a long time. If you can drop that by 50%, then you make substantial savings on the whole overall cost of things, because it's one of the drivers of cost. I think they might be doing it, but we'll know in about 5 years, because I think that's one of the big things. I think having the main one really is good translatable preclinical models. So the examples there, HIV, COVID, infectious disease, it's quite diagnostic of being able to cure another large organism if you can cure a mouse of a disease, a communicable disease. Giving a mouse which has no immune system a cancer, and then assuming that that's going to translate well into clinical sample, clinical patient, it's a fairly big step. And we aren't, and the industry is very good at curing mice of cancer.
Thank you very much. My name is Alexander Atanasov from Birmingham University. I was not sure if the mic
No,
was...
it's okay, on you go.
Yes. Anyway, I wanted to ask, it's obvious that Big Pharma is cutting down on R&D and people are generally moving towards CROs. What are CROs doing better than R&D departments at pharma, and what is Bioasset in particular doing better
Yeah,
than
no, that's
R&D
a very good question. And actually, whilst I was giving this talk, I was thinking that in my head. To be honest, not a lot. They're not doing anything different at the moment in terms of molecule discovery. What we're very good at is developing chemical probes against specific molecular targets, for sure. We're quite early in the process, Bioscent, particularly good at discovery. But we will have to get better, well, everyone will have to get better at the later stage efficacy models, for sure. But yeah, no, the answer is that I don't see much difference in what CROs are doing compared to large pharma. So yeah, I think the other issue is, at what point do you adopt a new technology in the hope that it's going to do something? Because as I've said, you've got stem cells, CRISPR, AI-enabled discovery, in silico discovery, a whole bunch of stuff has come along in the last 15, 20 years. None of it's touched the sides of that productivity crisis. So you come along with a new idea and new technology, say, right, this is fantastic, it works really well. How well validated is that? Has it been validated all the way through to the clinic? So it takes a while for adoption. And it takes a while for everyone else to say, oh, actually, that does work. So, yeah, it's going to take a long time, I think, in terms of... But that doesn't mean there's no reason not to do it. For sure.
Okay, shall we go to the next question? Here we are. Okay.
Hi, I'm James Kennedy, a student at University of Birmingham. Obviously, you said earlier about how the drug discovery pipelines can take up to 15 years, and obviously you said you were discovery experts, but do you guys do any repurposing of already FDA-approved drugs on your targets, sort of cut the time and cut the cost? Is that something you do?
We don't, no. We've not got any bioactive libraries, but there are a number of efforts out there to try and repurpose drugs, and they have some success, but they're not a kind of panacea. One of the issues is actually getting hold of everything that's been in the clinic, because companies' pipelines are secrets to companies. So they put a lot of drugs through the clinic, and then they don't do anything with them. They sit on a shelf somewhere. So actually curating and collecting and having that set of molecules which has really well-defined PK and tox in humans would make that a very significant effort and actually make it a lot more productive, probably. The problem with that is that you're working with the end product. So if you want to rescreen that against something, and you have a lack of efficacy, for example, and it needs to be 10-fold, 100-fold more efficacious, you have to adopt chemistry again. As soon as you start chemistry, you change the molecule. You change the molecule, you have to push it all the way back through all the process. So it's difficult, but it can be a good way of mining something. But as I say, it's having that big set, 10,000, 15,000 molecules. That's the problem.
Okay, next one. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Maria Laura from Glasgow. I was wondering, in terms of employment in your company, from people from chemistry background, it's pretty clear. What would you offer to people with biological engineering, physics background? We all work in very interdisciplinary stuff. But in your company, what kind of positions would you be able to offer to people like?
Yeah, so I guess we've got a lot of automation. We work with biophysics, biochemistry, cell biology, molecular pharmacology. There's a lot of different techniques and expertise that's required. Project management. Yeah, we've got a diversity of biological techniques and skills. I think the main thing is that somebody is enthusiastic and they can pick up and adopt techniques, but also it's this issue with running an assay, say you identify an assay from the literature and you say, right, there we are, we use that buffer. And the question is, why are you using the buffer? Why are you doing the technique the way it's always been done? And it's fine to do it the way it's always done if you understand why. Because if it's just because that was the bottle that was on the shelf when the person ran the thing, it's not really a good enough answer. So it's being questioning like that. That's the main thing, really, because a lot of our job is trying to solve problems and identify roadblocks as and when they come, or ideally before they arrive. But yeah, that's the main thing.
Okay, next question. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Narina Bilecka. I'm from the University of Glasgow. A lot of us here are working on models that are supposed to reduce and replace animals in the end. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts about that? Because we're mostly focusing on research, academia aspect of it. I was wondering, what are your thoughts in terms of pharma and organ on a chip, for example?
Yeah, no, I think that'll be a very substantial contribution, to be honest. I think one of the problems is the fact that we use so many animal tox models and efficacy models. I mean, you get such a diversity of responses in people that assuming that everything's going to translate through from a monkey and or dog and or mouse is also quite naive. Yeah, so I think it'll make I hope it'll make a very substantial impact. And then being able to use that to understand heterogeneity within a human population will also be extremely useful in identifying patients for going into clinical trial.
Okay, next one.
Thanks. Michael Monaghan, Trinity College Dublin. I was really intrigued by your slides there from eLife, and you see the reproducibility of data that's being published. It's quite embarrassing, but not surprising either. And I guess from being outside of academia, what aspects of a PhD graduate, for instance, or somebody that would be coming in to start an employment, what skills or mindsets would you want to untrain those people in? So, that they've gathered during academia and they've made maybe mistakes like this unwittingly. What would you untrain in those type of people?
Okay. So first of all, I wouldn't say that's not specific to academia. There's a lack of reproducibility in literature coming out of industry as well. We transfer assays between sites all the time, and we have difficulties transferring an assay, and it takes work on your own infrastructure to get something working. So there's a whole bunch of reasons, and it shouldn't be embarrassment. What I would say about that is, don't believe everything you see, but be very, very questioning of what your results are, and what in this is potentially leading me up the garden path. So the ability to question yourself. I would also, there's a fixation, obvious fixation on publication. There's actually good data that says getting negative publication is actually easier. It's easier to get it published, paradoxically in some cases, than positive data. as long as it's a really good, well developed and well executed study. And I've got an example of that. Was a molecule in which is actually on the market, bizarrely enough, which we found had no efficacy whatsoever in any in vitro models. And we made the argument to PLOS Biology that this was important data. The reviewers said, oh, this is very interesting, but there's no way this should be high impact. And just made the appeal, actually, it should be high impact because it's quite clearly suggesting that this molecule doesn't have the mechanism of action that the makers say it does. And they published it. So I wouldn't get hung up on where things get published. As long as you're doing good work, you should be able to get out there.
Next one from Manuel.
Hi, Stuart. Very nice talk, very inspiring. I have a couple of questions to know your opinion, which are, maybe these questions don't make any sense, but still. So all the paradigm of drug discovery is based on the idea that given a disease, we can find a drug to cure that disease. How valid is that hypothesis? How is that hypothesis assessed before starting this very long journey of discovering a drug? And then this decrease in productivity that you have shown very clearly, and we are all here very excited with the idea that providing better models, we will manage to increase that productivity. But what if the number of drugs is limited? What if there is a number of drugs that we can discover, and then we are reaching a limit in how many drugs are available in the world to treat any of the diseases? Yeah. Has that been considered by?
Yeah, I mean, so the guy Scannell, he looked at the productivity issue in nature. He coined the term better than the Beatles. So once you've got a molecule against a particular disease, and it's safe and efficacious and cheap, you're done with that, to be honest, unless you can find some point of differentiation for whatever you come along and try and charge people a hell of a lot more for it. That's it. I guess the paradigm that drugs treat disease, I mean, it's exemplified across a wide range of diseases, and the problem is you don't know, given any particular disease, until you've got a molecule in the clinic. The only way to validate that it is druggable is to show that you can drug it. So you've got to go through the process to get it in there. And that's, I mean, there's evidence that you've got a better success rate of getting a first-in-class drug into the clinic through phenotypic approaches rather than starting with a target-based hypothesis. And once you've got it exemplified that molecule works, you've got a much higher success rate of getting molecules through, which are me-toos, which are working against the defined target once it's been identified. And that's what they've done historically in the past, is you'll get a breakthrough drug, which does what it should do. They get it into the market, and they start generating some revenue on it. All the other pharma companies are fast followers. They improve upon the molecule. It gets onto the clinic it gets into the clinic a couple of years later, and then they destroy the market for that initial breakthrough molecule, and then they all pile on, and then they just fight each other with marketing, saying that our drug's better than your drug. But yeah, I mean, the answer, it's a difficult question to answer. I don't know. I'm sure there are lots of diseases which actually it might be near impossible to treat with drugs. I don't know what they are.
One here, please.
Yeah, probably a rather annoying comment rather than a question, but Jonathan Best from Cell Guidance. I've spent, I guess, the last 20 years in pharma as well, and your talk really resonated with me. I guess it just took me back to the comments Matt made at the beginning about the stakeholders. And it was more, it's not just about doing the actual research, but all those people who are going on to careers outside of research, such as funders, such as publishers. They've also got a role to play in making sure that research is published, which is good and solid. I think your reproducibility point is really key. You know, there's often like 3 out of 11 experiments that are done. Those 3 which have positive results are the only ones that are published. So I think, you know, when you're thinking about future careers, actually it's not just the research itself, but all those sort of auxiliary things around it, which also contributes to the success of the drug discovery. But that's great talk. Thank you.
Yeah, don't disagree.
Question, or are we all done? Oh, one here. Okay, let's be fairly quick one because we kind of need to move on to the. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gerard from Zimmer Peacock. And my question is regarding the different detection methods that are used throughout the process, from the preclinical validation and identification of potential drugs, as well as in the clinic once you start the clinical trials. So what is the impact of these methods on the overall efficiency?
So you're going to have to elaborate a little bit. Detection methods you talked about?
So, for example, you've shown some data, I guess, from ELISA. You've shown also some data from SPR, and I guess that there's going to be some analytes or metabolites that are going to be measured during the clinical trials to evaluate how the drug performs. So how do these methods affect the efficiency? And is there anything that can be done to improve the efficiency on that front?
Yeah. So I'm not going to list off lots of methods, I guess. Mass spec's a big one in terms of identifying biomarkers and actually all the way through the discovery process. Biophysics, traditional biochemistry, traditional cell biology, molecular pharmacology, all of these things are used in the process. In terms of where I think useful tools should be employed would be associating any drug discovery process or linking any drug discovery project with the development of a companion diagnostic. So they did that for Keytruda, right? So the checkpoint inhibitor is now major blockbuster. So like 14 billion a year, that one in particular. When they were developing that was actually Organon as well that developed that molecule. When they were developing that, the decision was specifically made to develop a companion diagnostic to try and stratify patients going into clinical trials. Because there was another PD-1 checkpoint inhibitor which failed to meet its primary clinical endpoints. But Keytruda, because they managed to identify the patients who were most likely to be responsive to that drug, they did quite well. And now they're ahead of the game compared to everyone else. So then, and once they're ahead, they're staying ahead. So my comment would be thinking about the long term and thinking about how you identify patients even early stage in the process of drug discovery is probably a very useful technique.
Okay, thank you very much. Manuel, would you like to just say a few words to Stuart? Thanks or whatever. Does that suit you?
Yes, again, thanks, Stuart, for your time today. I know you are very busy. I'm not sure you can stay for the afternoon, but
an hour, 2 hours, so I'll hang around.
Okay, so I think it's good for people because I'm sure that they will have more questions for you and the opportunity to interact with you coming from BioScent.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Stuart. Okay, now we need to, at this point, organise our afternoon, essentially. This afternoon is going to be totally involving compared with this, which is a largely sit and listen, largely but not quite. Now, we need about 20 minutes for this, and I actually need to confer with Michelle really about what's the best plan here, because we've got a certain amount of things to do before lunchtime and 10 minutes to do them in theory. Should we, because you've got some people that want to deliver something, so we've kind of got a choice. We could either do that and then immediately go for lunch and set up open space after lunch, or we could do open space now, but it means we'll be maybe 15 minutes late for lunch. Do you mind?
I'm quite happy just to do this bit first and then take a break if everyone feels the same.
All right. Okay. Any violent objections? No. Right. That's what we're doing then. Okay. Could you help me with this sheet of paper, please? break there slightly. We want to be kind of brisk at this point. Now, so those of you who kind of played the game before, we're going to do what's called an open space session this afternoon. Okay, it's really very, very simple. It's 3 rounds of conversations at 8 of these tables. It will be the 8 at the front of the room probably. I will put numbers on them, so they'll be numbered 1 to 8. And that corresponds to the numbers at the top of this sheet, okay? And then we do 3 rounds, so about 40 minutes each. And then at the end, we'll have a feedback thing where you just, each table or each conversation topic will share just a headline on what you talked about, what you'd like to see happen, what you decided, what you concluded, or some new question that emerged. All of these are valid kind of feedback things. Quick is the key thing. There is no feedback that is too short. All right, so there is feedback that is too long though. All right, so what we're going to do in a moment is gather topics for these potentially 24 conversations. And wow, 24 topics. Are we really going to come up with 24 topics? Well, the one that we did in October over at Curam, there were 37. So I was amazed. 37 is the best I've ever achieved. You always think, are there really going to be that many topics? Well, we'll see. Usually there are. Right, before we get into this, we need everybody to loosen up a little bit. We've been quite kind of formal this morning. So what I'd like to go around is just go around the room and just ask you for one word and how you feel about talking about lifetime CDT issues, opportunities, and such like this afternoon. Speaking with people you haven't met before and all the rest, how do you feel? And you could say, well, interested, curious, chilled, anxious sometimes people are, but no need to be, or whatever. Just a word. And I'm going to start over here with Emma. Emma, please, just in a word. Positive. Amy? Excited. I'm going to go complicated. Complicated? No, not really. Right, the lady over here, please. Interested. Okay, I'll walk around, it'll be easier, won't it? Yes, let's be brisk, quick as you can, okay?
Excited.
Excited, gentlemen. Exciteful. Very good. Curious. Intrigued. Hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah, optimistic.
Optimistic. Proud. Optimistic. Hannah? Pardon? Intrigued. Interested. Table at the back here, just gentlemen. The reason we do this, by the way, it's called getting the voices in the room. And one time we would struggle getting topics out is when I forgot to do this bit. So that's why we're doing it. Right, the lady here, please. Positive. Interested. Curious. Hungry/positive. Now, there's always one who wants to break the rules. One word. Okay, this gentleman here. Sorry, what's your word? We need to know your word.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's all right. We'll come back to you. It's all right. You've certainly played this game before, haven't you?
Yes.
Yes, right. Well, you've no excuse for not having a word then. Right. Interested. Energized. David. Awesome. Wow. Pardon? Motivated. Curious. Optimistic. Illuminated. It's different with masks on, isn't it? Just realised. Right, have you got a word yet?
Positivity. Positive.
Okay, well,
excited.
yeah, do you remember, it's a word about how you feel about doing it. Very excited. Good.
So I was catching up with what was going on.
Yeah, well, it's okay. Right.
Inspired. Inspired.
I'm not hearing. Inspired, right. Okay, the masks really mess it up, don't they? Enthused.
Yeah,
Interested. Excited. Yeah, whatever. It's okay if it's the same as somebody else's word. You know, chill about that. Not a problem. Yes. Interested. Yeah. Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Excited. Okay. Hopeful. Michelle. Enthusiastic. Right. Have we done all of this side? Has anybody not had a word on this side of the room? No. Right. We're okay. Right. This gentleman. Curious. Optimistic. Interested. Excited. Same. Do you mean? All right. Curious. Excited. Curious. Lady here. Intrigued. Interested. Motivated. Frustrated. Okay, sure. We'll talk to you afterwards, but it's fine. No, don't be afraid. I hope you don't feel well. Now's the time to maybe see if we can resolve whatever that is. Pardon? Interested. Hopeful. Here, gentleman here. Delighted. Delighted. Very delighted. We're thinking about this. Right, okay. Involved. That's the idea, by the way. Yes. Inspired. Intrigued. Keen. Motivated. Passionate. Ready. Enthusiastic. And Interested, right. Table over here. The lady with the laptop. What's your word, please? Progressive. Okay, how's the email? Intrigued.
Determined.
Pardon?
Determined.
Determined, right, okay. Sorry. Determined. Yeah, I see. Sorry, I didn't hear right either, really. Determined. We're nearly there, folks. Stay with it. Neutral. Neutral. Okay, gentlemen. Engaged. What? Tentative. And lady here?
Interested.
Interested. Right, have we done you guys? No, we haven't. Have we? No. We did. Sorry, I get completely lost with this. It's really difficult. Right.
Interested.
Interested. Intrigued. I'll come to you last. Jonathan.
In need of a thesaurus.
Oh.
Quizzical.
Pardon?
Quizzical.
Quizzical. And finally, Manuel. Happy. Way. Manuel is happy. Last time we did this, some of you may remember, last year we did this online, exactly this online, and it was all going great until we got to Manuel and they said something terrible. Right. Okay, so now, what we're going to do now then is to list out the topics from, now that you're all warmed up, okay to speak. It's actually okay to speak in this room, isn't it? Nothing terrible happened. So we're going to populate this with some topics. Now, just to remind you of the rules about this, when you put forward a topic, ideally, I know it's going to be slightly awkward because we might have some topics from the handful of online people, so quite how they're going to show up for their own conversation, I'm not sure. Anyway, reality is they aren't, but we'll see if we can work it somehow. So you need to show up for your own conversation. Apart from that, if you're sitting at a table and you think, you know what, I'm in the wrong place, I should be over there, then get up and go. All right, so law of 2 feet, as it's called. Apart from that, basically, you start when you start. Whoever comes to the table are the right people, and whatever happens is the only thing that can happen. The time's up, the time's up. There is no perfect way to do this, okay? So what we're doing is a conversation, talking about potentially 24 topics among about 80 people. So if you were to do the math on that, you know, the permutations are some enormous number, whatever. So you can't, you know, we just can only do it the best way that we can. And in the past, it's always proved to be very useful. It's a very internationally established technique, so just trust the process. Okay, so we have the grid here. What we use is bits of card, and it helps to have, I'm not sure you're allowed to say this nowadays, but glamorous assistants, you would have said at one time. So Abraham and Elaine are going to fulfill the role of glamorous assistants, which involves taking the bits of card and putting them on here. So maybe Elaine and Abraham would like to come up. Aha, right now I understand why he said his word. Aha, now it's all beginning to make sense. Okay, so what happens is, you don't do anything just yet. So when we get going, these people are going to come out with topics, thick and fast. We write on these bits of card, and if you guys can gather them from the room and put them on here on the blue tag, okay, and go across first, and before you know it, we'll have 24 topics. That's how it works. Okay, I think I'm better with my glasses on, actually. I can see better. I'm going to wear my glasses. That's better. I can see people better this way. So, do I need to say anything else? Yes, I do. Each table will have an output, what we might call an output sheet. Some of you have seen these before. So it says, just to give you a bit of structure, thank you. That's all right, Lynn, thank you very much. So just what was the topic? What kind of insights and highlights did you come up with? What other questions emerged? And then what decisions and recommendations you might have? What you inspired to do? What are the next steps? What you might need to find help with. So it's meant to give a bit of structure to your conversation, okay? Each table needs to have a scribe, somebody that writes down some answers to this, which we all type up later and it becomes a document then Michelle has to do something with. Which, anyway, no, actually, it's for all of you to work with it really. I shouldn't say that in jest. It's not really fair. And so right at the end, we'll have a quick bit of feedback from everybody. Probably not the scribe, somebody else, you know. So this is about hearing from everybody. So if you're kind of convening the conversation, make sure you hear from everybody at the table. You know, sometimes the quiet voice, not saying anything, is the person who's got the solution. All right, so I think that's all I need to say about the process. Any questions about the process? No? No? Those that have done this before, what have I missed? Not anything, I don't think. Right, so what would you like to talk about? Now, I know remember we'd have got a topic over here. So what I'll do, what's the topic? If you'd shout out your topic.
Sure, infectious diseases.
Infectious diseases, what's the kind of question about that? It's good if you make these sort of a question or narrow it a bit.
Okay, so what technologies we can apply to
Technologies, all right, technologies for infectious disease. Right, if you could write that on one of these cards with a pen, and one of my able assistants will take, thank you, just take that from, I'll put it over here. Okay, so we just wait, Abraham, we just, somebody over here in a minute. Okay, what's next? What else would you like to talk about? Yes? Transferable skills, sounds good. So let's give you a pen, and Abraham will come and get that from you in a minute. Over here, whoops, can I squeeze past? What's the topic, Megan?
Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. Very good, you like to talk about imposter syndrome. A pen? Yes.
I was going to say maintaining motivation.
Right, good. It's cool. There's no such thing as a wrong topic. So there's a pen. Thank you. Right, we're getting into swing of it. Yes, sorry, I don't know your name.
Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia.
Visiting industry partners.
Visiting industry partners. Sounds good. Could you write that on there? Right, keep them coming, folks. What else would you like to talk about? This looks like a hand here. Topic?
Expensive experiments.
What about expensive experiments?
Funding bodies aren't given enough money to fund experiments.
Right, shh, everyone, folks, shh, shh, shh. It's important that you hear the topics when they're expressed by the people originating them. So if we could just, if that's all right. Sorry, Michael, could you say it again, please?
My topic is expensive experiments because I think nowadays we're expected to run things like RNA-seq and very expensive experiments that our funding agencies can't support.
Okay, so how to deal with that, is it? It's what's to do about that issue?
Yeah, who do we lobby to do this? How do we increase our accessibility to these type of techniques?
Okay, so expensive experiment issues. Is that right? Thank you. If you'd like to write that. Yes, this gentleman here.
Screening of labs and PIs to ensure the expertise.
Okay, screening of PIs, what's it?
And labs to ensure the expertise and the skills.
All right, expertise and skills. Yeah, okay. How do you check you're going to have the right boss, as it were? Yeah. Okay, gentleman here.
Mental health and well-being.
Mental health and well-being, indeed. Always a good idea. Next topic is one over here.
Industry one, voice of the customer.
Voice of the customer. Cool. Whoop. Hi there. I don't have a pen just yet, but...
I was quite inspired by the reproducibility.
Reproducibility, you'll have to spell it, of course, but anyway, yeah, please use the big pens on the card because it makes it easier to read them. How are we doing? All right. Lady over here. Right. Whoops. Okay.
Screening of equipment to ensure the labs have what we need.
Okay, screening of equipment to ensure needs are met or something.
Yeah, like in
Folks, guys, can we please try and not have too much chat because we need to hear the people that are speaking.
So screening of equipment available in universities to ensure they match up with their PhD requirements.
Okay. Okay. So something like equipment to meet requirements, question mark or something. Thank you. All right. Pardon? Pens, thank you. Thanks. I've got a question. Yes, of course it's okay, Elaine. Yes, what's your question?
Kind of links between the NHS and research.
Links between NHS and research. Sounds good. Abraham, you're allowed at least one question too, if you want. You're allowed more than one question. Just need to make sure they don't end up in the same row because you can't be in two. There's one there. Thank you. Can't be in two places at one time, obviously. Okay. What else? Oh, Manuel has one. Yes, please. It helps if you hear what we need to achieve, just so as you understand the process. We end up with quite short form words in here. So they end up being a kind of memory jog about what you said. So, what is a high impact paper? Okay, thank you. Elaine, I'll take that pen, I think. Thank you very much. Right, next one. Gentleman here. Do we have sustainability? I don't think we do. Do we? Now we do, yes, thank you. Always good to have a conversation about sustainability. Changes all the time, doesn't it? Right, next topic, yes. PPE, the PPIE, no, that's not on there, I don't think, unless somebody's put it in a different form. There we go. Next topic, folks. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes.
I know I gave one already,
but that's okay.
Predatory journals.
Predatory journals.
Yeah.
What to do about them?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just make sure you don't. It ends up in a different row from your first one. Okay. Yes. Hi.
Yeah, I have a definition of success.
Definition of success. Yeah. Well, one thing. See, if you put forward a topic, and you're the only person that wants to speak about the topic, that's fine. It means you're the kind of expert, and you've got a unique contribution to. No, seriously, everybody laughs at this, but it's actually fine. See if you end up at a table with one of those sheets filling out something about definition of success. That's still a great contribution. Pardon?
I don't think I'm the person to talk about.
Oh, yes, you are. But you can, yes, you are. You're certainly the person to be a focal point of one, so there you go. It's fine. Go for it. It'll be great. It will be great, won't it? It'll be great. Yes, over there. Would you eat cultured meat? Okay. There's no. Would you? Yeah, there you go. Yes.
Can our new in vitro models reach a precision medicine healthcare?
Okay, so sort of relevance of in vitro models to precision medicine, something like that. Yes? Oops, sorry. Thank you. I'll take the pen. Thank you. There's two emerging here. You okay?
I might come back to you.
With another question?
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll write that one first so as we don't get muddled up. Thanks, Elaine. Thank you very much. Did you speak your question? Yeah. You did? Right. Did you speak it, though? Yeah. You did, right. Yeah, sorry. Yes, Matt. Yeah, we need to say it. How do we improve for lifetime too? Yes, of course. Matt that was your topic from this morning, earlier, wasn't it? Yes. How could we forget? Right, hi there.
Are we active enough on social media?
Are you inactive? Right, okay. A topic about social media, but just are we active enough? Okay. How are we doing? Our poor colleague, oh, thank you. Sorry, Elaine. Is this why you need help with this? It's two here, isn't it? Yes.
No, just me.
Oh, right, okay.
How do we keep students and other stakeholders informed of upcoming events?
Okay, how to inform stakeholders of events. Cool, thank you very much. I was about to say our colleague here on the cameras, I'm keeping him busy running about the room. Right, okay, second question from our man over here. Adam, thank you.
How do you deal with anti-science, anti-vax movements?
Okay. Sorry, yes.
Validation of models.
Validation of models, okay. Cool. Yes, lady here.
How to streamline visa applications for students who need to constantly cross back over.
Okay. Can I have a pen? Elaine, thanks. Right, streamlining of visa. Yeah, okay. Oops, sorry. Thank you very much. Good job. Right, how are we doing? Yeah, there's at least one there. The lady at the back's heard. Okay, next topic. Next topic. Don't worry if you might think, oh, we only just need one more and then we're done. Well, that is kind of true. However, there's no harm in having a few more if we think of them, because we can always group a few, or we could even have another table. So, yeah. Productivity, the one that, what? Yes. Productivity, and I'm sure Stuart will be interested to hear what comes out of that. Lady over here, the lady with the laptop, whose name I have, thank you. Yeah, just put them, maybe you could look for ones that they're sort of similar to. Excuse me a second, folks. See if they belong kind of similar to something else, okay? There's more blue tack up there on the right, on the left, actually. Yeah, sorry, lady with the laptop has another topic. Validation of, yeah, there was a topic over there that was, Was that validation thing? Anyway, let's write it. Whoops. No, I'll get that in a sec. I'll just give you the pen, maybe. Right. Morella. Is that right, Morella? Yeah. Okay, next topic. How are we doing? That looked like, for a moment, I thought that's a topic. But actually, no, it's not a topic. All right, are we all done? Now, please don't next week be thinking, oh, see, when we were all together in Glasgow, we should have talked about ... So if there's anything like that, we need now's a good time to say, because kind of soon it'll be too late. If you do this process in the all-up fashion, you actually leave further rounds blank, and people add topics as the event proceeds. We do this in a slightly more constrained way than that, but you can do that if you want. How are we getting on there? Yeah, there's the one there. How's it going? Don't. If we end up with 24 all told, that will be obviously just perfect. So don't go totally crazy on the bunching. Right, are there any? Oh, yes. How's time? We're almost done, folks. Lunchtime is calling, I know. Yes?
What is inclusivity?
What is inclusivity? In 40 minutes. Yeah, inclusivity. A topic to do with inclusivity. Right, any more? So if you're sitting here, a little hot under the collar, think, oh, I've got a topic, but I'm not sure that I want to say it, then just sense that, oh, I've got a topic, then we want, yeah,
I don't know if you already said that, but like, how can we involve the public?
Involving public. Yeah, somebody mentioned the PPIE thing, yeah, so we've got that actually, so not sure what it is, but we've got, thank you. So there's a conversation there for you to join if you'd like to, particularly. Any more? Right. In that case, any more? Last, oh. Well, there are issues to work on? Is it job done, or is it? All right. Do you want? Who's the folk? Do you want Michelle? Do you want to do it? Yeah, I think you should do it. It feels like you should do it. There we go. Right, we'll find. How are we getting on, guys? Is this working? It's going to be on the mentoring program. Just to chat about the mentoring thing. Right. Any more? We do kind of dwell on this because it is important to not omit something by accident. Okay, right. So what have we got then, guys? So you got a space for that? Right. So we're just going to very quickly kind of run around this. You maybe need help me with this, Lane, Abraham. Yeah, just make sure I understand. So validation of tech models. Technologies for infectious disease, are these all the same? Is that all together, are you saying?
Yeah, kind of models all together.
Yeah, okay. All right. Right, going this way. Transferable skills, expensive experiments, industry partner visits, productivity and drug discovery, mentorship of CDT students, and how to maintain motivation and ambition, combating imposter syndrome, mental health and well-being, voice of the customer. Then, links between NHS and research, what is a high-impact paper, sustainability, public, it's the PPEI one, dealing with anti-science movements, would you eat cultured meat? Yeah, broad ethical things, that's great. Definition of success, screening of labs and PIs for suitability for your needs, reproducibility, predatory journals, are we active enough in social media? How do we improve lifetime 2, or improve for lifetime 2? How to keep stakeholders informed about events, streamline the visa requirements for non-EU, what is inclusivity? Can our new in vitro models help us reach precision medicine, healthcare, and equipment to meet requirements? Right. Is anybody violently opposed to that structure and wants to propose that we move anything? Does anybody need to be in 2 places at the same time? So remember, you must show up for your topic. All right, is everybody content? Okay, so after lunch, 2 o'clock, we gather back in here, and each of these will be at a table number. So it's up to, unless you're a nominated topic, it's up to you which conversation you join. Okay? It'll all be set up for you when you come back in. Then I'll call you 40 minutes on each one, and then tea break after the second round of these. Okay, and I think now, what you might find handy is to take a photo of that on your phone, but it'll be here, you can come and refer to it. Think about where you want to go, but remember, you must show up for your own conversation. Right, I think we're all done with this. Michelle, yeah.
Lunch, we've got
everyone,
2
please.
students just to give a wee quick talk about our joint TCES and CDT conference that's coming up this year, if that's okay.
Hiya, yeah, just to give a little promo for our joint CDT conference. It's taking place in June. It's happened the last few years, but it's mostly been online. So this will be the first time that it's in person in Birmingham. We've got our topics announced. We've got some keynote speakers to be confirmed. We're really encouraging CDT students to get involved, whether it's poster or a little talk. Abstracts are due end of April. But we'll also have some like industry partner packages for sponsorships as well. So we'd be really keen for people to get involved. We're going to circle this around soon, probably via email, but there's also the little QR code to scan for more information. Thank you.
Right, we all done with that? Right, have I missed anything? If not, it's lunchtime, which is back through in the reading room. Back here for 2 o'clock, please, okay? Have a nice lunch.